Welcome back. You've sent us a really interesting mix this time.
Oh, yeah.
Articles, forum threads, even some translated excerpts. And it's all exploring this theme of, family dynamics and how they connect to those bigger, societal structures.
I see.
Today, we're going to take a deep dive into two concepts that I find really fascinating.
Okay.
The black sheep and the three levels of people.
And what's really interesting is that a lot of this is coming from what seems to be this online platform, Inclustrad text, where people are having all these discussions and debates about all these complex social issues.
Exactly.
It's like a digital public square, you know?
Exactly. A place for people to grapple with those universal questions of why things are the way they are,
Right.
both within their families and the wider world.
Absolutely.
So have you ever felt like you see things but differently than your family? Or maybe you've noticed how people's experiences with prejudice seem to shift depending on their social standing?
That's a good one.
If so, this deep dive is for you.
Let's start with this idea of the black sheep.
Okay.
It's more than just being the quirky one or
Yeah.
the rebel of the family.
Yeah.
It's about challenging the family's unspoken rules, their carefully constructed reality.
You're tuned into a different frequency, right?
Yeah.
You pick up on those undercurrents of tension, those unspoken narratives that everybody else is trying to ignore.
Yeah, the shadow side, as they call it in some of this material.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating about this is that the black sheep often becomes the scapegoat for all of the family's unresolved issues. And there was actually a study I saw mentioned in some of the source material that found families with a history of trauma or hidden conflicts, they're more likely to have a designated black sheep.
It makes sense, though, if you think about it, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's easier to project all of those unresolved feelings onto one person.
Right.
Than to actually confront that messy reality head on.
Exactly. It's like a defense mechanism almost.
Right.
A way to maintain a sense of order and harmony, even if it's built on a foundation of
Denial.
So the black sheep might be seen as the problem.
Right.
But they're also often the one that's most aware of the real issues, the cracks in the facade.
Which is why they can be both disruptive and potentially transformative.
Yeah.
Because they force the family to confront those uncomfortable truths, even if it's painful.
It's like they're holding up a mirror.
Right.
Reflecting back the family's dysfunction, whether they want to see it or not.
Absolutely.
But that can be a pretty heavy burden to carry.
Absolutely. And this is something that comes up a lot in these sources, too.
Yeah.
About how this dynamic can lead to feelings of isolation, rejection, and even guilt.
But it's not all doom and gloom, right?
No, not at all.
The source material also points to some positive aspects.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of
being the black sheep.
Positive stuff.
Yeah.
They tend to develop a very strong sense of self.
Yeah.
Because they've had to forge their own path. And they're often more empathetic and open-minded, less bound by convention.
They're the ones who challenge the status quo.
Yes.
Who aren't afraid to ask those tough questions.
Yeah.
And that can lead to some real growth and evolution, both for themselves and for the family as a whole.
It's that, classic idea of the wounded healer, right?
Yeah.
It's the one who's been through the fire and emerges with a deeper understanding of themselves and the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So now, if we zoom out from the family unit a little bit.
Okay.
And look at society as a whole, we see some similar patterns at play, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's where the three levels of people model comes in.
I like this model. Yeah, it's a framework for understanding how experiences with prejudice can shift.
Yeah.
Depending on your position within a social hierarchy.
And just to be clear, it's not about labeling individuals or putting them in rigid boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more about understanding
the dynamics.
Yeah, those dynamics at play and how those shape perceptions.
Exactly. So imagine society as a pyramid with three levels.
Okay.
This model suggests that where you stand on that pyramid can impact how you experience the world. And how the world experiences you.
I see.
Think about it for a sec. Have you ever felt like your background or social status played a role in how you were treated?
Yeah.
This model might offer some insights.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so at the base level, level one, we have this idea of identity and fate.
Okay.
And here, external attributes.
Like what?
Things like race, gender, or socioeconomic status often become the dominant narrative. It's almost like those attributes become seen as destiny, determining your opportunities and limitations.
It's like, predetermined.
Yeah, and the source material highlights how this can be amplified.
Oh, yeah. How so?
When resources are scarce.
Right.
Leading to competition and a sense of us versus them.
Makes sense. So it's all about survival, belonging, securing your place in a world that often feels precarious.
Exactly.
And that leads people to focus on those external markers of identity.
Right. Sometimes even within groups, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Where deviating from the norm can be seen as a threat.
And they actually give an example in here about internalized racism within a community. Where someone achieves success outside of those expected norms.
Right.
And they're seen as betraying their roots.
It's a powerful reminder of how deeply those dynamics can run even within groups that share a common identity.
Absolutely. And it's really important to acknowledge the role of those larger societal structures.
Right, like what?
Like segregation, economic inequality.
Oh, I see.
Media narratives that reinforce those stereotypes and divisions.
They create a context where people come to see those external attributes as the defining features of who they are and what they can achieve.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, so moving up the pyramid, we reach level 2.
Right.
This is status and superficial markers.
Okay, so identity becomes less about those core attributes.
Yes.
And more about
climbing that social ladder.
Right, yeah, social climate.
Achieving a certain level of prestige.
And so prejudice at this level
becomes more
covert.
Yeah, it's not about outright discrimination based on who you are.
Right.
It's about those subtle preferences for how you appear.
Right, those social signals.
The social signals you project.
Yeah, and they use this term in here, cultural capital, to describe this. Highlighting how those seemingly superficial things, your clothes, your accent, your social network.
It can hold real power.
It does.
In determining your opportunities.
Yeah, it's like there's this
unspoken code.
Right, a set of rules for how to
look the part.
And those who don't conform often find themselves excluded, even if they have the talent and the qualifications.
And they give some pretty striking examples of this in the source material.
Yeah, what was it?
Like job discrimination based on a person's name or appearance.
Right, even when the resumes
are identical.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even when we think we're being objective, unconscious biases
can creep in
and influence our perceptions and decisions.
Absolutely.
And this level is often reinforced by systems that reward those superficial markers of success.
Things like networking.
Yeah, exclusive social circles. Even the power of brand names.
Conspicuous consumption.
And then there's those subtle,
digs.
Those microaggressions that can leave you feeling like you don't quite belong.
Like
those backhanded compliments.
Oh, yeah. Those are the worst.
Like, you speak so well.
Yeah.
For someone from...
Right. Or you're so articulate.
Yeah. It's that subtle but persistent message that you're still...
An outsider.
Yeah. Yeah. That you have to constantly prove yourself worthy of being included.
And it's often delivered with a smile, too.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes it even harder
to call out.
Yeah. So the pressure to conform becomes even stronger because the stakes are higher, right?
Right.
You're not just trying to survive at this point. You're trying to climb that ladder.
Achieve that
status and recognition.
It's a fascinating and complex dynamic.
Totally.
Isn't it?
Yeah, how this desire for acceptance and belonging can lead to this kind of... self-erasure.
It's a reminder that prejudice doesn't always manifest in these overt, aggressive ways.
It can be subtle.
Insidious.
Yeah, even disguised as admiration or well-intentioned curiosity. It is fascinating, isn't it?
Okay, so we've explored these two concepts, the black sheep and the 3 levels of people.
Right.
And I'm already feeling like I have a new lens for looking at both family dynamics and societal structure.
Yeah.
But what I find really encouraging is that this source material doesn't stop at just identifying these patterns.
Yeah, right.
It actually delves into potential solutions.
Oh, interesting.
for addressing prejudice and inequality.
At each level.
At each level, yeah.
I like that.
So let's start with level 1.
Okay.
Where the focus is on identity and fate.
Right.
What kind of interventions can help shift those deeply ingrained beliefs
Yeah, that's a good question.
about identity and opportunity?
It seems like education is a really powerful tool here.
And we're not just talking about textbooks and lectures.
No, it's about weaving those critical perspectives into everything.
Right, like
The fabric of our institutions, our communities.
our everyday conversation.
Our everyday conversations, yeah.
So what would that look like in practice?
Well, imagine if schools
Yeah.
incorporated more diverse narratives into their curricula.
Okay.
Like teaching history from multiple perspectives.
Right.
Highlighting the contributions of marginalized communities.
I love that.
It's about what we learn in school,
Right.
but it's also about the messages we're exposed to in the media.
The stories we tell ourselves and each other
Exactly.
about who we are
And what's possible.
and what's possible.
And they give some really inspiring examples in here.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, which aim to address historical injustices
Okay.
and promote healing.
And then there's that program,
What was it called?
Ala Ulika.
Ala Ulika.
We've been bleeding.
Yeah, which focuses on fostering inclusion and diversity.
In schools and communities.
It's about creating these spaces where differences are celebrated.
Not just tolerated.
Not just tolerated, but celebrated.
Where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued.
Absolutely. And it requires a real shift from a scarcity mindset where we see differences as threats.
To an abundance mindset.
To an abundance mindset where we recognize that diversity enriches us all.
Right.
It's a powerful idea.
Okay, so moving up to level 2.
Okay.
Status and superficial markers.
Yeah.
How do we tackle those subtle forms of bias
Right, those are tricky.
that are often disguised as preferences or social norms?
Well, one approach is to challenge those systems that reward superficiality
Okay.
and create a more level playing field.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like implementing blind recruitment processes.
Oh, interesting.
Where candidates are evaluated solely on their qualifications.
Not their background or appearance.
Not their background or appearance.
I've heard about some companies using AI now to remove bias from their hiring processes.
Yeah, it's not just about the technology, though. It's about changing mindsets.
Right.
And creating a culture where diversity is valued.
Not just as a box to check.
Not just as a box to check, but as a source of strength and innovation.
And they give some really encouraging examples in here.
Oh, yeah.
Companies that have adopted these practices and seen real results.
Like what?
Increased diversity.
Okay.
Improved employee morale.
Yeah.
Even greater creativity and problem solving.
It's not just the corporate world, though, right?
Right. We could apply these principles anywhere.
Anywhere where decisions are being made.
Education, healthcare.
Even our personal relationships.
It's about being mindful of our own biases.
Absolutely.
Questioning those unspoken assumptions.
And actively seeking out diverse perspectives.
Yeah. So finally we reach level 3.
All right, level 3.
Integrity and inner qualities.
Yeah, where those more covert forms of prejudice.
Right, they can be so hard to pinpoint.
They can be.
What can we do?
It seems like this level requires a much deeper level of self-awareness.
Both individually and collectively.
Both, yeah. And it's about challenging those ingrained power structures.
Okay.
Ensuring that success is truly based on merit.
Not on who you know.
Not on who you know or what social circles you belong to.
And the source material really emphasizes the importance of representation at all levels, especially in leadership positions.
Because when people see themselves reflected in those positions of power, it sends such a powerful message about what's possible.
It expands our understanding of what leadership can look like.
And what success can mean.
And it's not just about who's in charge, is it?
No, it's about creating a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute.
Where different voices
are heard and valued.
And that requires us to be willing to listen. To be open to perspectives that challenge our own assumptions.
Create spaces where constructive dialogue can happen.
I love how this source material connects this idea of representation to the power of storytelling.
Oh, I like that.
Like it talks about the impact of films.
Oh, yeah.
Like Black Panther.
Oh, yeah. Good example.
Which not only showcase those diverse characters.
Right.
But also challenge traditional narratives about power and identity.
It's about expanding our understanding of the world.
recognizing that richness and complexity of human experience
Yeah.
and creating a culture where everyone feels like they belong.
It all comes back to that idea of the black sheep.
Right, the one who dares to see things differently.
To challenge the status quo.
To push those boundaries of what's possible.
The one who might be seen as the outsider.
Right, the misfit.
Yeah, but who ultimately helps us to see ourselves.
And the world.
And the world with greater clarity and compassion.
It's a powerful reminder that change often starts with those who are willing to question the norms.
Embrace their unique perspective.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left with a sense of hope.
Me too.
A belief that while the journey towards greater equity and inclusion is ongoing, we have the power to create a more just and compassionate world.
We do.
And it starts with each of us.
Yeah, recognizing those hidden dynamics.
Challenging our own biases.
Using our voices to advocate for change.
So, dear listener, we invite you to continue exploring these ideas.
What resonated with you the most?
What actions will you take to create a more inclusive world?
Both within your own sphere of influence
and beyond.
Because change starts with awareness.
But it flourishes with action.